Okay, so imagine you're in the Colosseum, right?
Yeah.
But instead of gladiators, there's this massive picnic happening.
Okay.
Like a picnic for like 50,000 people.
Wow.
Wine is flowing, fruit's literally raining down from the sky.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of party a Roman emperor could throw.
That's amazing.
But, beyond all the spectacle,
Right.
what was it actually like to live under their rule?
Yeah.
How did these powerful figures manage to balance everything?
Right.
Like keeping the elites happy, keeping the everyday folks content.
Yeah.
So today, we're going past those crazy emperors.
Okay.
Like Caligula and Nero.
Right. Right.
We're going to take a deep dive into the Roman emperor as like
Like a system.
like a system.
That's a really interesting way to think about it. Like
Yeah.
a system.
Yeah.
We always focus on like the personalities.
Right.
But Professor Dame Mary Beard, who we're going to be hearing from a lot today,
Yeah.
reminds us that this position, this system, lasted for centuries. There's a remarkable consistency to the role itself.
Yeah.
The challenges, the expectations.
It's like trying to understand the U.S. presidency without focusing only on individual presidents, right?
exactly.
And speaking of Mary Beard,
Yes.
her insights into the emperor's relationship with the Senate are really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Did they really have absolute power?
Right.
Or was it more of a delicate dance?
That's exactly what Mary tackles in her work.
Yeah.
It's easy to just imagine these emperors with like unlimited power,
Right.
but she shows us that it's a lot more nuanced than that.
Okay.
They were constantly balancing what the elites wanted,
Yeah.
what the Senate wanted, what the people wanted.
Yeah.
And, assassination was a very real possibility
Oh, of course.
if they didn't keep the right people happy.
So it's not as straightforward as like
Yeah.
what the emperor wants, the emperor gets.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
To really understand this, we have to go back to the beginning.
Okay.
So the Roman Republic,
Yep.
which came before the emperors, it wasn't built for an empire.
Okay.
Their system of sharing power, and having elections every year
Mhm.
worked really well when they were conquering territory.
Okay.
But, as Mary points out, that system ended up being their downfall.
Right.
They were almost victims of their own success.
So the empire kind of created the emperor?
Exactly.
Right.
The Roman Republic structure just couldn't handle the complexities of managing this huge empire.
I see.
These officials only had terms for 1 year,
Right.
and that was supposed to keep anyone from getting too much power.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it could take months to travel across the empire,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
that became a big problem.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's like trying to run, I don't know, like a global company,
Right.
but only having a town council to do it.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
It just wasn't practical.
So then enter these, what does Mary call them?
Prequels to autocracy.
Right. Prequels to autocracy.
Yeah, I know it sounds a little dramatic,
Yeah.
but think of it like a gradual shift from sharing power to having a single leader.
And these are people like Julius Caesar,
Yeah, Julius Caesar.
who start to gather power and kind of set the stage for one person to rule.
Exactly.
Then we have Augustus,
Right.
who really makes this transition from a republic to an empire happen.
Augustus was so smart.
Yeah?
He didn't just seize power, he knew what he was doing.
Right.
He used the language and the systems of the old republic to establish a new way of ruling.
Interesting.
Instead of getting rid of the Senate,
Right.
he cleverly changed their power
Oh.
so that he always had the last say.
It's like he rebranded it.
Exactly.
The Senate's still around, but the real power is kind of gone.
And that created this really interesting situation.
Yeah.
The emperor needed the Senate
Okay.
because they had the knowledge and experience to rule well,
Right.
but he also had to stay in control so they wouldn't overthrow him.
Right.
They needed each other, but it also created tension.
So not exactly absolute power then.
No, not really.
Sounds more like they're always negotiating.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, so then this is where the idea of civilitas comes in, right?
Exactly.
Mary describes it as the emperor acting like one of us.
Right.
Like, for example, Augustus made a big show of greeting each senator by name
Mm-hmm.
and shaking their hands.
Yeah, it's like a politician today doing a meet and greet,
Right, exactly.
trying to seem approachable.
But how genuine was that, really?
Well, there's this story about Tiberius.
Okay.
He was Augustus's successor,
Right.
and there was this senator who was afraid of voting the wrong way,
Oh.
like going against Tiberius's wishes.
Oh, wow.
So he asked Satirius to vote first.
So everyone knew who was really in charge?
Exactly.
That kind of ruins the whole one of us act.
It does, doesn't
Yeah.
it? And it shows the kind of pressure emperors were under.
Yeah.
They wanted to seem like first among equals,
Right.
but they also had to make sure they stayed in power.
Yeah. It sounds like a tough balancing act.
It really
This reminds me of Pliny the Younger.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Roman senator who
Yeah.
wrote all those letters.
Yeah.
He's often seen as someone who collaborated with the Emperor Trajan.
Right.
Was he really just playing the game?
It's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Should we judge historical figures by our standards today,
Right.
or try to understand the situation they were in?
It's a tough one.
Pliny definitely did well under Trajan,
Yeah.
but his writings also show us that complex dance
Okay.
between the emperor and the Senate.
Makes you wonder how many people throughout history made compromises just to survive,
Yeah, no.
even if it meant giving up some of their ideals.
It's a difficult thought.
But let's move on from the Senate for now
Okay.
and talk about the emperor's relationship with the people.
Okay.
Mary uses this great image of dinner parties
Right.
to show us the hierarchies and the anxieties in the emperor's world.
Mm.
Who knew dinner could be so stressful?
I know. Imagine these Romans, relaxing on their couches, enjoying these amazing feasts.
Yeah.
But Mary points out that these dinners were carefully planned to show off power.
Oh, wow.
Where you sat at the table literally showed your status
Really?
with the emperor.
Wow.
And that could even affect your safety.
Like a high-stakes game of social chess
Yeah.
where every move matters.
And Mary tells this crazy story
Okay.
about Domitian's dinner party from hell.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this.
The guests were served food you'd eat at a funeral
Oh, my gosh.
and surrounded by tombstones.
That's so creepy.
Can you imagine the tension?
Wow. Talk about a mood killer.
I know.
It really shows how the emperor could use these social events to control people.
Yes, exactly.
It's a reminder that power isn't always about, brute force.
Right.
Sometimes it's about creating an atmosphere where people obey without question.
And even the servants were caught up in this power struggle.
Yeah.
Mary mentions a chef who
Okay.
had Archimarouse,
What's that?
head chef,
Oh, okay.
put on his tombstone.
Wow. So everyone was trying to climb the ladder,
It seems like it.
from the senators to the cooks.
Yeah.
But what about everyday people in the Roman Empire?
Right.
Did they ever even get a seat at the emperor's table?
Well, sometimes emperors would throw these massive public feasts.
Okay.
Mary talks about Domitian holding one in the Colosseum for 50,000 guests.
Wow. A picnic for 50,000 people.
I know, it's crazy.
That must have been amazing.
And chaotic.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There's this poet, Statius, who was actually there.
Oh, wow.
He mentions that some of the fruit wasn't ripe.
Oh, no.
People were getting hit on the head.
Ouch. Adds a whole new meaning to food fight.
Yeah, right.
But beyond these big events, were emperors expected to be accessible to their subjects?
Yeah. I mean, in theory,
Right.
the ideal emperor was supposed to be there for the people,
Right.
to listen to them, to solve their problems.
So like a public servant?
In a way, yes.
Right.
There's this famous story about Hadrian,
Okay.
where this woman tells him, if you don't have time for me, you don't have time to be emperor.
Wow. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it sets up this idea of a ruler who's in touch with his people.
Yeah.
Someone who's willing to listen.
But did that actually happen?
Well, we do have records of petitions reaching emperors.
Okay.
But Mary says the reality was probably more complicated.
Yeah.
It wasn't as simple as just going up to the palace
Right.
and demanding an audience.
So how did it actually work?
How did everyday people get their concerns heard? Mary suggests that a lot of people relied on connections
Okay.
or someone to speak for them.
Right. Intermediaries.
Exactly, to
Cut
get
down.
their message to the emperor.
Yeah. Maybe makes sense.
She gives an example of a man from this small town called Scapara.
Okay.
He was able to get his petition to the emperor
Yeah.
because he was also in the imperial guard.
It's like knowing someone who knows someone.
Yeah, exactly.
Even today, having the right connections can make a big difference. It makes you think that even though the emperor was supposed to be accessible,
Right.
actually getting to him probably required knowing the right people
Yeah.
or having something they wanted.
It makes you wonder how many voices never got heard
Right.
just because they didn't have those connections.
Was it different for people who were wealthy and influential?
You'd think so,
Yeah.
but not always.
Okay.
Even they could face challenges.
Right.
Mary describes this situation
Wait.
with delegations from Alexandria
Yeah.
who were trying to get Caligula's attention
Right.
and ended up feeling completely humiliated.
You'd think having money and influence would at least get you a meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
It shows that access to power wasn't always simple,
Yeah.
and it reminds us that power dynamics can be really complex,
Yeah.
even in ancient Rome.
So this all gives us a fascinating picture of the Roman emperor,
It does.
both as a person and as a system.
Mm-hmm.
But what about their personal lives?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Was there even such a thing as personal
Right.
when you're the most powerful person in the world?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And Mary's book talks about this.
Yeah.
This idea that the emperor's private life was also part of his public role.
Right.
Everything they did,
Yeah.
their dinner parties, their family relationships,
Hmm.
it all became subject to scrutiny and political maneuvering.
That must have been exhausting.
I know.
No wonder some emperors like Caligula or Nero
Right.
are known for being so excessive and eccentric.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just trying to escape the pressure.
It's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
It's easy to judge these figures based on what we read about them,
Right.
but imagine the pressure of ruling an empire.
Yeah, I can't
The
imagine.
constant threat of conspiracies,
Yeah.
the need to keep everything in order, having to make decisions that affect millions of lives.
That's like being the CEO of a global company, but with gladiators and chariot races.
Right.
Speaking of which, how did emperors use things like games and public events
Mhm.
to solidify their power
Right.
and connect with the people?
The Roman emperors were masters of spectacle.
Yeah, they really were.
They knew how to use entertainment to
Yeah.
distract people, to unite them, and to reinforce their own authority.
So things like the Colosseum,
Exactly.
with the gladiatorial combats
Yeah.
and the mock naval battles,
Yeah.
these events weren't just for fun.
Yeah.
They were carefully crafted to show off imperial power.
It's like the Super Bowl halftime show,
Okay,
but with a lot more bloodshed.
those events must have been incredible to witness.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think ordinary people really felt a connection to the emperor through these events?
It's hard to say for sure,
Yeah.
but I think it probably created a mix of emotions.
Okay.
On the one hand, there's the thrill of the spectacle, the excitement of the competition,
Right.
but then there's also this underlying message
Okay.
about the power of the emperor. He's the one who provides this entertainment,
Yeah.
who controls what happens to the gladiators,
Right.
who ultimately has the power over life and death.
So it's entertainment with a political message.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they didn't just use big spectacles. They
Yeah.
used more subtle propaganda, too.
Okay.
Like coins and statues
Yeah.
to project an image of strength, wisdom, and divine favor.
Okay.
You'd see images of the emperor on the coins you used every day,
Oh, yeah.
or encounter his statues in public spaces.
Right.
It was a constant reminder of his presence and his authority.
It's like the billboards and social media we have today.
Exactly.
A constant stream of messages trying to shape public opinion.
Right.
Did this propaganda actually work?
I mean, we can't know for sure,
Yeah.
but we do have evidence that people worshipped emperors, offered sacrifices to them,
Wow.
even treated them as semi-divine figures.
It's crazy how the lines between ruler, celebrity, and God could blur like that in ancient Rome.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Makes you think about the nature of power and belief.
Exactly.
How much of it is genuine respect
Right.
versus fear or just being told what to think?
It's an important question.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what future historians will say about our own systems of power.
Right.
And how those in authority today shape public perception.
But going back to ancient Rome,
Okay.
how did the system of the Roman emperor eventually fall apart?
Right.
It wasn't built to last forever.
No, it wasn't.
So the decline of the Roman Empire,
Yeah,
it's a complicated thing.
it really is.
Lots of factors contributed to it.
Mm-hmm.
But one key element was that the imperial system itself was unstable.
Right.
Like succession, who
Yes.
would become the next emperor,
Exactly.
that was often messy and unpredictable.
Right.
It led to power struggles, assassinations, civil wars.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine what happened when an emperor died without a clear heir.
Oh, it must have been chaos, like a real-life Game of Thrones.
Exactly.
Powerful families,
Mm.
ambitious individuals.
All fighting for control.
And as the empire got bigger and more diverse,
Right.
it became harder to manage from one central point.
Exactly.
The Roman emperors were dealing with challenges on all sides. Internal rebellions, external invasions.
It sounds like the weight of the empire just became too much to handle.
And don't forget the economy.
Right.
Maintaining a huge army, paying for all those big public projects, keeping the elite happy.
At all cost money.
Yeah.
It took its toll on the imperial treasury.
And as the economy got worse,
Yeah.
it got harder for the emperor to take care of his people
Exactly.
and keep things stable.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a perfect storm
Yeah.
of internal and external pressures that eventually led to the fall of the Roman Empire.
It was a combination of factors.
Yeah.
But that instability within the system of the Roman emperor, it definitely played a big part.
It's a reminder that even the most powerful empires can be vulnerable
Right.
to internal divisions, economic problems.
And just the passage of time.
It's a sobering thought.
Yeah, but it also makes you appreciate
Right.
the achievements of the Roman Empire and the lasting impact of its emperors,
Yeah.
their stories, with all their complexity and contradictions. They continue to fascinate us centuries later.
They really do. Yeah, it really is incredible how these stories from so long ago still resonate with us today.
It makes you think about how some things never change.
Yeah.
Human ambition, the desire for power, the challenges of leadership on such a grand scale.
And as we've been discussing in this deep dive,
Yeah.
the Roman emperors,
Right.
both as individuals and as this system,
Yeah.
give us a way to look at our own relationship with power,
Right.
truth, and the stories we tell about those who govern us.
You know, Mary Beard suggests that while there aren't like direct lessons from ancient Rome
Yeah.
to apply to our political systems today,
Right.
the Roman emperors do give us a framework
Okay.
for thinking about how power works and how truth is often manipulated
Yes, exactly.
by those in authority.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It reminds us to be cautious of those who claim to have absolute power,
Right.
to question the narratives we're presented with,
Yeah.
and to look for different perspectives.
Okay.
The Roman emperors, for all their faults, remind us that power is complex
Yeah,
and often fragile.
absolutely.
And it reminds us that we, as citizens, have a responsibility to hold those in power accountable,
Right.
to demand transparency and honesty, and to make sure everyone's voice is heard.
The Roman Empire might be gone,
Yeah.
but the questions it raises about power, authority, the relationship between the ruler and the ruled,
Right.
those are just as relevant today
Absolutely.
as they were centuries ago.
So as you go about your day, think about this.
Okay.
In our world today, who really holds the power?
Yeah.
How do they use it?
Yeah.
Are we any closer to achieving genuine civilitas?
Right, that idea of a ruler being one of us
Exactly.
in our modern systems of government.
And maybe most importantly, whose voices are still being ignored
Right.
by those in power?
These are big questions,
They are.
but they're important ones to ask.
Definitely.
And for those who want to learn more
Yeah.
about this fascinating world of the Roman emperors, I highly recommend Mary Beard's book, Emperor of Rome.
It's a fantastic book.
Really insightful and thought-provoking.
It's a must-read
Yeah.
for anyone interested in history,
Yeah.
power, and the lasting legacy of ancient Rome.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the Roman emperors,
Yeah.
make sure to subscribe for more thought-provoking explorations of history, science, and culture.
We'll be back soon with another fascinating episode.
Until then, keep those minds curious.
And as always,
Yeah.
thanks for diving deep with us.
Yeah, it's amazing how these stories from ancient Rome are still so relevant today.
It really is.
Makes you think about, human ambition, the desire for power,
Right.
the challenges of leadership on a massive scale.
It's all there.
And like we've seen in this deep dive,
Yeah.
the Roman emperors,
Right.
both as individuals and as a system, they give us a way to look at our own relationship with power
Yeah.
and truth
Absolutely.
and how we view those who govern us.
It's a powerful lens.
Mary Beard mentions that while there aren't necessarily direct lessons from ancient Rome
Okay.
that we can apply to our political systems today,
Right.
the Roman emperors do offer a framework for thinking about power dynamics and how those in authority often manipulate the truth.
That's a great point.
It reminds us to be wary of anyone claiming to have absolute power,
Yeah.
to question the stories we're told,
Exactly.
and to seek out diverse perspectives.
It's about being critical.
The Roman emperors, for all their flaws,
Right.
remind us that power is a complex thing
It is.
and often
right.
fragile.
Yeah. Definitely.
And it also reminds us that we as citizens have a responsibility to hold those in power accountable,
Absolutely.
to demand transparency and honesty,
Right.
and to ensure that everyone's voice is heard.
That's so important.
The Roman Empire may be long gone,
Yeah.
but the questions it raises about power and authority and the relationship between ruler and ruled,
Right.
those are just as relevant today as they were centuries ago.
Couldn't agree more.
So, as you go about your day, think about this.
Okay.
Who really holds the power in our world?
Yeah.
And how do they use it?
Right.
Are we any closer to achieving that genuine civilitas, that idea of a ruler being one of us
Right.
in our modern political systems.
It's a question worth pondering.
And maybe most importantly,
Yeah.
whose voices are still being silenced by those in positions of authority.
Those are some really thought-provoking questions.
Big questions, but important ones.
Social-
And for anyone who wants to learn more about the fascinating world of Roman emperors,
Yeah.
I highly recommend Mary Beard's book, Emperor of Rome.
It's such a good read.
Really insightful and thought-provoking.
It is.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the Roman emperors, be sure to subscribe for more fascinating explorations of history, science, and culture.
We'll be back soon with another episode.
Yeah. Until then, keep those minds curious.
And as always, thanks for diving deep with us.